we want you today to kind of summarize your journey with MAP and aftermath. So can you summarize quickly what were the diagnosis, what were you suffering from? So January 2021, before you know MAP, what were the core essential issues, diagnosis, challenges you had?
So I think it was in December of 1994 that I was diagnosed with insomnia. And at that time, I was also diagnosed with dysthymia. And
can you explain a little more?
Yeah, I don't really, it was a step beneath depression. They really at that time did not diagnose me with depression.
Mm-hmm.
It was dysthymia.
Yes.
And it was the first time that I was an intern at that time, and I thought it was because it was very hectic schedule. I was working basically 36 hours, and I had 12 hours to sleep. And this was the whole schedule for a full year. And I thought it was the schedule that had disrupted my sleep. But I saw a psychiatrist at the hospital that I was working, and for the first time, and I was 34 years old, and it was the first time that somebody put this questionnaire in front of me and asked a bunch of questions. The first time in my life I was seeing a psychiatrist. And one of the questions was, have you ever been sexually abused? And it was the first time in my life that I was disclosing to anybody that, yes, I have been sexually abused. And I thought this was a visit that I would go and somebody would give me a pill and I would sleep. I had no idea that this was a journey that is going to take me decades. And I was 6 months later, I was supposed to go, this was in Philadelphia, and I was supposed to go back to St. Louis for my residency. And she started me on therapy and was going to put me on some antidepressants, which I had many side effects I couldn't tolerate. So we did some therapy, and 6 months later, when I was going to go to St. Louis, she told me, which I was like in shock. She told me that you need to find a psychiatrist in St. Louis because you need at least 7 years of therapy. I'm like, what? 7 years of therapy for what? I only cannot sleep. She said, no, you have had a decade of sexual abuse. You need several years of therapy. I was like in shock. I thought I was just fine. I thought I was fine. It was no, and the way I was talking about my sexual abuse with her, I was talking as a third party about something happening to somebody else. I had no emotion. I was like so suppressed that I had no emotion attached to it. And she knew how much in trouble I was. So that is how it started. And I went to St. Louis, and that is when therapy started. And that is how my 30 years of struggle with insomnia began. And this progressed into clinical depression as I started tapping into the suppressed memories of sexual abuse. And as of 1999, I finally had to go on antidepressants, onto sleeping medication, and things only got worse and did not get better.
Wow. And then at one point you began to open up and try a lot of things, and you gave me the list.
Yes, I have listed 40 things, but I would not be surprised if I have forgotten some of the things that I have tried. And things got so bad that in 2000, I would say 18 or 17 or 18. I mean, even before that, I believe in 2014 it was, when my psychiatrist here, after trying a number of antidepressants, literally told me, I do not have anything else to offer you. I clearly remember that day. It was one of the worst days of my life. He said, you can go try electroconvulsive therapy. And I'm like, no, I'm a physician. I am not going to risk losing my memory. My brain is my everything. I'm not. And out of absolute desperation, I went to Brazil, this guy, John of God, that people who literally, my patients who had stage 4 cancer, that you tell them I don't have anything else, they would go to Brazil to John of God. I'm like, okay, I'll go to John of God. Maybe something would happen. I mean, perhaps had some placebo effect on me, but when I came back, I literally was just doing meditation and some affirmations, and because I didn't have anything else to do. And finally, this transcranial magnetic stimulation came out, and my doctor said, well, you can go try this. Now it's FDA approved. I don't know if it did anything for me. I did 6 weeks of that. And every week I had to fill this questionnaire that I had to rate my depression. And the doctor, he wasn't doing it. He referred me to a psychiatrist at Baylor. And they would ask me to rate it and to see whether I'm responding to that or not. And I was say, are you any better? I'm like, I don't know. It's like, because I was in such a deep depression, and I would say, you're asking me, I'm in active depression. It's like you're asking, a house is on fire, and the reason that the house is on fire is somebody is pouring gasoline on it. Nobody has stopped the gasoline, and you're asking me, is the fire better? I'm like, you have to stop the gasoline before I can tell you that if the fire is better or not. I don't know, because somebody's pouring the gasoline on it. I don't know. So I don't know if without TMS, I would have been worse than what I am. I have no idea. So I don't know if TMS did anything or not. So when and MAPS just showed on my Facebook feed, when I was introduced to MAP, it was just, for me, was just like John of God. I'm like, anything, I was willing to try anything. Absolutely.
Yes. And at the time, I remember your sleeping pills didn't work anymore.
No, I was up all night. I was absolutely exhausted. I was crying all the time. I was extremely depressed. I was just either kill me or do something about it. I just didn't know what to do.
Yes. And then you discovered MAP. So we did one session as a demo. You came to my demonstration.
Right.
And that
I volunteered. Yeah, I was one of the volunteers.
Yeah. And so on that session, you got already some experiences that changed something. So perhaps you can summarize that.
Right. So I have had experience with, I had 10 years of sexual abuse, beginning age 4.5 until I was 14.5, 15 years old, with 3 different abusers. And on that day, I had vivid memories not all of them, because obviously I had suppressed memories, but some of them I had vivid memories. And I imagined some of those while you were giving instructions to my superconscious. And what was very striking to me after doing 30 years of therapy with several different, psychiatrists and therapists, the striking things for me, number one, was that how quickly the rating dropped from 10 to 5 and to 2. That was number one. Number two was recollecting some of the suppressed memories that when I started the session with you, I didn't have any memories of them, and they were resurfacing. And clearly I was like, I could feel that my superconscious was going through these files one by one, even the ones that I didn't have any recollection. And it was like, it was going through some files and bringing them up. And so that was very interesting for me, that I didn't need to have recollection of every related memory. It was going through all the related memories for me. And the fact that I didn't need to speak about them, I just needed to imagine them, and how quick it was, like in a matter of few minutes. For me, who has been through 30 odd years of this with different people, hours and hours and hours. And the fact that this was being done in a group, yet it was very private. It was amazing for me.
Yes, thank you. And then we did sessions together. So I did.
Yeah, I mean, I would forever be grateful to you. You realized how bad a shape I was in. You took me under your wing, and even though you don't usually, you do have some private clients, but you generously offer, I believe, 6 sessions to me, and really my condition was urgent. I was in really, really bad shape, and we had 6 sessions, which was a lot of your time, but compared to 30 years of therapy, it was really, relatively speaking, it was really, really miraculous, those 6 sessions. And you work very intuitively, but at the same time, what was interesting, the sessions were guiding to the next. The superconscious was kind of guiding us to what needed to be worked on next. We didn't have like an agenda of what needs to, so as we worked on something and then something else comes up, and through your experience and your intuition and what would come through sessions, that then you would say, okay, we need to work on this next. And one would lead to it. Just as I said that, as we were working during the first session, that was the trial or trying to introduction of how to learn math. As the files would come up, as we're, for example, working on one, the superconscious kind of brings something up, and we knew that that was something to be worked next, and we work on that and something else. So between you and my superconscious, we were led on what needed to be worked on next.
Yes. So we addressed a few sessions perhaps on the sexual trauma. I don't even remember. Some of it were even career traumas. And I mean, it was only 6 sessions. So, and then after that, I think also with your relationship with your daughter, that was kind of the core.
Yes. So my relation with my daughter was absolutely paralyzing for me. That was something that was really, really devastating for me. It was absolutely, it was something that I was suicidal about it. It was so, so devastating. It was absolutely, I mean, that was something that had triggered the latest bout of my depression and the latest bout of my insomnia. So it was really, really the crisis of my time. And that was something that I had zero acceptance about it. It was absolutely, I don't know, the crisis of my time. Everything was coming. Everything was rooting from that. And I had absolutely zero acceptance about it. And everything was surrounding that one issue. So it was as if I couldn't change that, nothing else could change. And because it was dependent on her and nobody could change her decision, it was as if, okay, there's no solution. And I had to change my reaction to that. I had to change my understanding and reaction to that. And I was just stuck. I was absolutely stuck. I don't know how. I don't know how. But somehow after MAP, I completely reached acceptance.
And we did also, you added some subliminal MAP sessions.
Oh, absolutely.
So that also kind of constantly helped you release, open up. It's possible that helped in that area with our discussion about acceptance. And then finally, there was a breakthrough.
Well, I have to say that now I understand that the rejection by my daughter and the fact that she hasn't valued me or I don't matter to her, it's the latest relationship mirroring a series of relationship, a pattern that starts at age 4.5 by all the abusers, all the traumatic relationship with my own parents and everything, abandonment. These are a pattern that has been happening beginning age 4.5. So that relationship, even though I was stuck in that relationship, it was really a reminder or trigger showing all these series of relationship beginning 4.5. So when we started working on those relationships beginning 4.5, it got me out of being stuck in my relation with my daughter, because it resolves all those relationships that they were all mirroring each other, ending with the latest relationship with so even though we were not focusing on my relation with my daughter, because it was addressing the pathology beginning age 4.5, it kind of unstuck me from relation. So even though the issue of relationship with my daughter still exists, the way I react to it has changed, because now I value myself. The way I see myself in that relationship has changed, because the way I see myself in relationship to all those relationships beginning 4.5 has changed.
So now we are moving into the impact of those MAP sessions and you said it was life-changing. So the biggest life-changing was all those relationships and being a better relationship with yourself.
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, triggering trauma. I mean, the trauma. What trauma does to a person is that we always react to the past, not to the present. So, say, in a relationship with an intimate partner. So something happens. Say, the person forgets our birthday, right? People may forget our birthday, right? It's not a crime. The person might forget your birthday. We might react auto proportion, not because this person forgot our birthday, because we have been neglected or in the past by our parents or whatever. So all of a sudden we are triggered and we are reacting to all these past events because of trauma. So we are reacting to the past, not to the present. If we didn't have this trauma in the past, then we only react to present. Oh, you forgot my birthday. And then he says, oh, I'm sorry. I'll take you to dinner tonight. And it would be just as simple as that. But when we have trauma, it becomes a huge fight. And then, it may end up in a breakup of the relationship because the traumatized person is reacting to the past, not to the present, because we're stuck in the past. So what MAP does in resolving the trauma, it brings the traumatized person to the present. So then you only react to the present. You don't need to be triggered by 50 past events and be triggered by every single little things in the present, react to the past all the time. So that's the beauty of resolving traumas by MAP.
Yes. And so in terms of state of being, how do you feel now in life? Emotions, like, do you feel joy and freedom? And what kind of state of beings do you experience now, thanks to freeing your past?
I would say peace. And that was something that I was yearning for it. I was like, I really remember then all I wanted was peace. I didn't have peace at all. And I was like, torture. It was torture all the time. I wasn't sleeping, thinking all night, flashbacks all the time. I had zero peace. And what I feel more than anything right now is peace. And I was talking to an old friend of mine, and he, every once in a while emails me and, so how are you doing? I'm like, oh, I don't have any news, my life is boring. And it was like, no, your life is not boring, your life is peaceful. It's like, yeah, right, my life is peaceful. So yeah, I really feel peace more than anything else. And yeah, it's peaceful. So I can sleep, which is a good thing. And I enjoy my own company. And I mean, I enjoy my own company too much. I don't want to trade it with anything. Yeah.
And in terms of medications, before and after, where are you now?
Yeah, so one of the many things that I tried which didn't help in late 22, before I was introduced to MAP, I went to Costa Rica and I tried ayahuasca. And ayahuasca and antidepressants, they don't go together. You have to stop antidepressants. And a month before I went to Costa Rica, I stopped antidepressants, and it's very difficult to come out of antidepressants. And since they were not doing anything for me anyways, when I came back from Costa Rica, I did not go back on them. So I have been off antidepressants since October of 2022. So in a few months, that would be 2 years that I have been on. But even more difficult than coming off antidepressants is coming off benzos for sleep medications. And I came off benzos in May of 2021. So that is more than a year. That is after MAP. I have to say that I had a little bit of help from a meditation by Dr. Dispenza. It's called Restorative Meditation, and I still do it. Yes. Before going to sleep, I do his meditation. And so with MAP and also doing Dr. Dispenza's meditation, I was able to finally dare to stop and it wasn't helping. It was not helping. It was just a psychological dependency. And I had started with 0.25 milligram of benzo, and I was on 4 milligram of it. That is 8 times. And if pharmaceutical companies say you don't get dependent on them, they're lying to their teeth. It was complete addiction. 4 milligram. And in May of last year, I started coming off it, and you have a withdrawal with benzo, just like an opioid medication. It was horrendous. It took me months to gradually decrease the dose. And you get withdrawal absolutely like you're addicted to the medication. So finally, I started reducing the dose in May, and I came off it in September. It took me that long. So this September would be a year that I've been off it. So right now I take some supplements such as melatonin and a little bit of CBD oil, but no prescription medication.
Wonderful. Wow. What a journey. Huh?
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember also the joy, the energy, and we went to Costa Rica in February this year in 2022, and you were dancing and
yes. Yeah, I emailed Gabor after when we came back because I have an uncle who is dependent on opioids, and I wanted to ask Gabor for a place that is safe for Iboga. And he emailed me and he gave me the address, and then he wrote, "Keep dancing."
Yes. Seeing you dancing like that after a year later, yeah, it was great. All right. So I think we have a very good idea of your story, and I'm so grateful that you took this time with me today and
absolutely
share about MAP. It's been so fascinating. I think it might be interesting. It could be an interview or something that we, if you agree, some of it might be.
Sure, absolutely. I would be more than happy. I would love for people to learn about MAP. It's safe, has no side effect, is quick. I mean, gosh, MAP didn't exist 30 years ago, but imagine if 30 years ago, instead of going through all these things that I went through, all the pain and suffering without any really result. If at that time I learned about MAP and that was the first thing I tried, that would have saved me so much suffering. So good for people who learn about MAP now and that is the first thing they try. I mean, that is fantastic. That saved them so much time and suffering, and just I'm very happy for them. So I would love to share. I would love to for people to learn about it. If somebody, by sharing my testimony, they learn that, you know, that's something that they should try. I mean, I recently was talking to a patient of mine who has lost a partner of 35 years, and I was telling about my story with him, and I was talking about the retreat at Golden Hill retreat, and I was encouraging him to come, and I was telling him about sharing about what I went through. And so if that opens the door for somebody and they get encouraged to try it, I would love that.
Thank